is to actually create a new world order.
There's a need for a new world order.
Have before us the opportunity to forge for ourselves and for future generations a new world order. When we are successful, and we will be, we have a real chance at this new world order.
I think its task will be to develop an overall strategy for America in this period when really a new world order can be created. It's a great opportunity.
Never before has a new world order had to be assembled from so many different perceptions.
After 1989, President Bush kept said, and it's a phrase that I often use myself, that we needed a new world order.
What is at stake is more than one small country. It is a big idea, a new world order.
founder of Equal Elections Foundation. Today we would like to begin this open presidential debate with a brief acknowledgement that we are gathered here on the ancestral land of the Native Americans. Long before colonization, Chicago was a central trade hub. The city's name came from the Algonquin people, who called the river on which it sits Chicago, after the fragrant wild leeks that grew along its shore. Chicago was the home of the Ojibwe, Odawa, and Potawatomi nations, which comprised this council of the Three Fires. It was home to the Miami, Ho-Chunk, Menominee, Sac, Fox, and Illinois nations. Through colonization, including bloody conflicts, forced removal, and unfair treaties, most Native Americans were forced out of the region. President Abraham Lincoln himself oversaw the removal of countless indigenous people from the indigenous lands, along with the deaths of thousands. Therefore, we call this the land of Lincoln. It is important to understand the message that sends. It continues a narrative that is rooted in deceit, forced displacement, and murder. Every community thriving today owes its existence and vitality to the generations from around the world who contributed their hopes, dreams, and energy to make this history that led to this very moment. Some were brought here against their will, to leave their distant homes in hope of a better life, and some have lived on the land for more generations than can be counted. Truth and acknowledgement are critical to building mutual respect and connection across all barriers of heritage and difference. We all share common bonds and values. We all want a better world for our loved ones and a brighter future. Thus, we are here to continue our collective cooperation to bring the cultural changes that will transform our world. There are no problems, only solutions. This is my favorite quote by John Lennon. It is an outlook that I strive to embody. It is a way of thinking that I believe, if adopted, has the power to transform our lives and revitalize our government. This is the inspiration behind creating an open presidential debate. This season, Free and Equal Elections has joined forces with our amazing co-hosts, opened the debates, and so many incredible dedicated sponsors, including the Foundation for Harmony and Prosperity, Nexus, the Center for Election Science, Taxpayers United of America, Heartland Communities, Represent Us, National Association of Nonpartisan Reformers, Independent Voter News, Ballot Access News, as well as the United We Stand tour stops, Earth Week, Thrive Fest Hawaii, Sister Winds Festival, Freedom Rising Convergence, Need Peace, and Tribal Vision. I would like to thank our media sponsors, Free Thought Project, The Mind Unleashed, Anti-Media, Collective Evolution, and Fulcrum US. Thanks for sharing this live stream today. I give recognition to individuals as well, including Catherine Gell, Frank Atwood of Approval Voting, David Bowden and Crystal Wagner, Justin Patak Agency, and Gennady Stolarov. The fascinating thing about the open presidential debate is this is a first of its kind, a unique debate with a focus on solutions, inclusion, and unity. Today, we have gathered a truly diverse group of candidates. In addition to those debating, I would also like to recognize candidates Andy William Jr., Phil Gray Party, and Elisa Miller, who are in our audience today. Over 1,000 people, 1,000 people have filed with the FEC to run for president this year. And we wish we had the capacity to hold a conversation with all 1,000 of them. However, we think it's healthy to have some threshold. It's clear that the thresholds set by the major parties, that is, are unconstitutional, anti-democratic, unfair, and unreasonable. We hope that you'll agree that our criteria for an invitation has been constitutional, fair, and reasonable. Our blockchain election system app, launching this fall, will open our debates even more in the future by allowing the people to decide through alternative voting methods who will be chosen to participate. The current system leads us to believe we are a divided people. We are not, and we refuse to have that illusionary stake driven further between us. We will break that delusion. We will rise above and unify to make our stand demanding what is right for the American people. The corporate-sponsored television Commission on Presidential Debate represents a divisive side of our political culture, while we, in contrast, want to give a voice to the vast majority of the people throughout the USA and world who are hungry for change. We want to help their messages be heard while representing peace, love, and unity. These 18 candidates are demonstrating that Americans across the political spectrum can put their differences aside and come together to hold a decent conversation, express new ideas, and create solutions. This debate will be split into 2 segments with 9 candidates each. The first segment will run from 2 to 5:30 p.m. Central Time. Afterwards, all 18 candidates will appear on stage at 6 p.m. for a photo op and answer one singular question. The second segment will go from 6:30 to 10 p.m. The format will be a variation of the cumulative time debate format. The United States League of Women Voters uses this format. After a brief introduction by the moderator, each candidate will have an opportunity, after my brief introduction, to make an opening statement of 2 minutes. The order for the statements has been determined at random. Candidates will have 2 minutes to answer each question. Each candidate will have a total of 3 or more opportunities to take a 1 minute to offer a rebuttal or expand upon their previous answer. For instance, you could use your extra minute that is on each of the first 3 questions, or you could save them for the last 3 questions. You may use any of your extra minute on the same question after each candidate has had an opportunity to use one in order to encourage free exchange of ideas. Extra minutes do not carry on to the closing statements. Each candidate will be permitted a 2-minute closing statement. At the conclusion of each debate, we will ask our audience to vote for their favorite candidate using an alternative voting method known as approval voting. This poll is sponsored by the Center for Election Science and is available at freeandequal.org. Let the open presidential debate begin. So we're going to start with 2-minute introductions. We have a timekeeper, Jane, here in front. She'll let you know when we're at 1 minute, 30 seconds, 15 seconds, and stop, because we can lose track of time when we're talking. I'd like to start our first introduction with, I think I got this down, Suriname Moya Wasife Curry with the Green Party.
Let's clap for her with my name. Good evening and greetings from South Central Los Angeles. Hey, we're in the house. I appreciate the honor of the land of the people we have stolen it from. I also honor my ancestors. Last year was the 400th anniversary of the year of the return. That commemorated 1619 when black folks were brought here against their will. So not only the land we have to honor, but the labor that built, black labor, that has not been reparized. That's a new word. Reparation hasn't been paid to us. I'm a 4th-generation black farmer. Land and soil got me here to be a presidential candidate for my party, the Green Party. The earth, she does not need us. If we were all not here, she would be okay. We must save who? Ourselves. Who must we save? Come on, y'all. Who must we save? Okay, so we can agree on that. Thank you. I have been committed to my party because of values, 10 key values and 4 pillars. Our campaign, Suriname 2020, talks about 3 main things: cognitive, ecological, economy versus traditional economies, and then we talk about love. There was a Harvard study. I don't know if y'all heard about it. They studied folks for 75 years. And guess what? The most important thing people think about and care about? Relationships. So if we don't focus on relationships between each other, we won't have a perfect union. America at 300 needs Suriname. Thank you very much.
Mark Stewart, Democratic Party.
Thank you. I'm a conservatarian. That means, for public purposes, I am libertarian. That means getting out of people's lives, reducing government. That's how I would like to see our policymakers, and yes, I hope to be one of those policymakers. I am running for the vice presidential nomination. To whom? Any party that has a good, free-minded, liberty-minded representative at the presidential level, and that very well might be one of the people here. I actually hope so, because the libertarian mindset is the better one. It's actually one that I think is shared. We see returns at the presidential level of 3 to 5%, but I suspect that at least 40% of Americans are socially permissive, fiscally conservative, strict. And I'm sure it's at least 70% of people under 40. We have a willing audience, but we don't propel people like us, the liberty-minded, to be in prominence. Well, I am trying. I am still a Democrat. I am still in that big old party with the idea of smashing it to smithereens. Christina, you talked about unity. And in one area, I don't think right now we can have unity. I would like to see the socialists within my party banished to another party called the Communist Party of America. That's where they belong. Leave the Democrat Party alone. And if they won't do it, come over to the Libertarians, where a lot of us will treat you very well. I'm also, as I said, a conservative in my personal views, and I think that is a good way to operate personally. My website is stewartforliberty.com. Thank you for being here and joining online afterwards.
Ben Zion, Transhumanist Party.
Yes, thank you. My name is Ben Zion of the United States Transhumanist Party, and my platform is called the Futurist New Deal for America. My campaign slogan is "Radical Life Extension is closer than you think." I'd like to talk about that for a moment. If you've been watching the news in recent months, you may have noticed that artificial intelligence is shortening the runway of the development of new medications. This is not an isolated incident. In fact, we are looking at this decade in a set of breakthroughs beyond anything that the world has ever seen. Public health is going to be radically transformed in the course of the coming years. Now, it could be said to be the story of generations past, where an orphan technology is perhaps not adopted because of a lack of interest or political will for it. And that's sad when I think about something that I personally enjoy, like Google Glass. But when it occurs in emerging biomedicine markets, it's not simply an irritation. This is something that represents a tragic and avoidable loss of life. In the 2020s, we are going to cure cancer. We are reversing degenerative brain diseases, and even cell death is being counteracted. But that political will and consensus could very well be the difference between every single person in this room surviving to a longevity escape velocity, as my friend Aubrey de Grey likes to say. This is something that history will not remember us kindly if we do not show some initiative here. And the book of Mark in the New Testament says, "What profit a man if he gains the whole world but loses his own soul?" We can see this longevity escape velocity even in the next 8 years, but we must fight to see it done well, and that includes humane economic policies and policy initiatives of the kind embodied in the Futurist New Deal for America. Why settle for Medicare for all when you can have longevity for all? Thank you.
Thank you. Brian Carroll, the American Solidarity Party.
Thank you, and I want to thank everyone who had a hand in putting this event together. The great aspiration of our founding generation was that we would become a society in which every member would have an equal opportunity to participate in the blessings that our country promised. We've come a long way since the days of legalized slavery, since the days when the only voters were white, male landowners, but I don't think we can say that we have arrived. In fact, in some areas we may be moving backwards. The American Solidarity Party believes that the Declaration of Independence put life, liberty, and life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness in the proper order. There is very little room for pursuit of happiness when there is no liberty. and there's no room for either when there is no right to life, when that has been denied. Our nation has the potential that we have not yet achieved. And one impediment to that is the decision of our two-party system. Voting for the least bad of two bad choices encourages the major parties to continue offering bad choices. The American Solidarity Party wants to protect life at every stage. We oppose abortion, capital punishment, and assisted suicide. We favor a culture of life that would encourage mothers to continue a stressful pregnancy, that would include expanded health care, child care, paid family leave, and streamlined adoptions. We believe our country devotes too much money and too many lives to an overdependence on military action and not enough resources to protecting our climate and environment.
Thank you. Welcome, Dan Bierman, Libertarian Party.
Thank you. I'm Dan, Taxationist Theft Berman. I wear this big, ridiculous yellow hat just to get a message across, but I do take it off for the debates. I just wanted you guys to see it so you can recognize that this is what we're doing with the campaign. What I'm about is recognizing what is the role of government. And we have such a diverse population in this country alone and around the world that we have to recognize when politicians propose government programs to solve a problem, they're not always a solution that everybody wants. Why can't we have multiple options? Why can't we all figure out what works best for ourselves and not have to accept one solution for everything? Another thing that I point out about a lot of the solutions that politicians will offer is that they try to fix a problem that was created by another government program. Instead of asking, why is this problem here, they try to cover it up with something else. We can fix the source of the problems, and when we do that, we give more freedom, more opportunity, more choices, and more prosperity to everybody else. This means everybody's life gets better. I can already hear from some of the things that are going to be proposed tonight that there are some ideas, great intentions, I'm sure, but they're not things that everybody is going to want, and we have to stop thinking that way. We have to stop thinking that everybody has to live the same way. We can have different lifestyles. We can live different lives in the same society, and we shouldn't be forced to live a certain way that a simple majority believes is the right way for them. Thank you.
Arvind Vora, Libertarian Party.
My name is Arvind Vora, and I'm running for president to end the welfare state and end the income tax. On my first day, I will pardon Julian Assange, Edward Snowden, and Ross Ulbricht, followed by every single nonviolent drug user, nonviolent drug seller, nonviolent drug trafficker, and nonviolent drug kingpin, that's people like Ross Ulbricht, followed by everyone in jail for a cryptocurrency charge or a weapon possession charge. As soon as I do that, I will take on full-time the role of partner-in-chief, but I'm also going to bring the troops home. These will not be involved in foreign civil wars with your money ever again if I'm commander-in-chief. I will bring those troops home right away. I will give people early honorable discharges and let some of the hardest working and most heroic men and women in the country join the productive private sector and bring an era of economic growth as the likes of which this country has never seen. Ben mentioned that we are on the verge of a healthcare explosion. And Ben, you're right. But what's keeping us back from that? It's the FDA. Today, because of FDA costs, if you have a rare disease, you will never see a cure because they've driven up the cost so high that companies can never recoup their losses. My goal is to get government out of everything, out of healthcare, out of education, out of every part of your life, so that we can end the income tax entirely, get government out of your lives entirely. If you want to learn more about my campaign, please join us at votevora.com.
J.R. Myers, the Life and Liberty Party.
Okay. No, it is working. The light wasn't on, so thank you. So I'm very appreciative to be here, and I think it's a very worthwhile endeavor that we have so many different perspectives, and yet we are united in many of our goals. I think actually our goals, we want what's best for this country, all of us. We have different routes to those goals, but that's what debates are for, and that's what elections are for. And I see this as something this country vitally needs, is bringing together these different viewpoints. The corporate oligarchy has failed us, and we don't need more billionaires running the system. We need the common people being represented and the lives of the common people being acknowledged and strengthened, not weakened. We are the masters of the government, not the servants of the government. They're supposed to be our servants. I would restore them to servanthood. I was just thinking, you know, the ancestors and the lands and everything that brought us to this point, and how successfully they have been in dividing us and conquering us. And if we could unite, just how powerful we would be as a people. So these types of debates are an opportunity for us to show united vision and a united voice for the healing of our country. I'm a therapist, and this country needs national therapy. We're a traumatized people. We have to stop traumatizing each other on and on. We have to stop allowing the government to traumatize us. But I'm all about that. I'm about historical reality, acknowledging that. I'm about life. The Life and Liberty Party was created to promote life in all its various means. And without liberty, life is bondage, so we need both life and liberty to achieve the pursuit of happiness, and that's what I'm all about. We're a centrist party with the idea that the Constitution is the foundation and center of what we believe. Thank you.
Eric Gerhardt, Libertarian Party.
Thank you.
Thank you.
A lot of people think I shouldn't be up here. I'm too young. I think that there's too many politicians that have been in there too long, and they're too old, and they just too set in their ways, that we need a new way to strive forward together. I had many great teachers when I was in high school. Very smart men. Master boiler mechanic was my language arts teacher. I had a nuclear submarine engineer was my science teacher, and a hippie mathematician, that doesn't make any sense, but they're all really brilliant people. One of the things one of my science teacher told me was there's a difference between masters of a craft and jack of all trades. The thing is jack of all trades know a little bit of something of everything, but they're a master of nothing. So I've honed my craft to become the master craftsman that I am. Been doing it for 17 years. And now it's time for me just to change gears. I've seen the people at the very base. I've worked for them from the top to the bottom, and they're struggling. And I just can't stand to see the way our government is just squeezing them, everything they got right out of them, taking their properties because they can't pay their taxes. They're on fixed incomes because they're elderly. They lose their home upkeep. And it's just heartbreaking. And we need to make that change so that people can live freely without just being burdened and bogged down by the government. There's a lot of different ways we could do this. I think little small steps that are victories are probably the best bet. One of the things I would like to do is an immunity law. We put the politicians on the stand where when they're running, they lose their political immunity. They're not going to break the law, and we have to abide by the rules. They're going to play by the same rules as us, and that's what I believe in. Go to Eric Gerhardt to 2020.com and check me out.
Thank you. And Charles Kraut of the Constitution Party.
Thank you. I'm very pleased to be with you today. I'm from New York City originally. I spent 4 years after I finished my college in the United States Army, serving as a cold warrior behind the Iron Curtain. Gave me a very interesting perspective on how governments of both varieties operate. Since then, I received a master's in business administration and corporate finance, so I am by training and profession an analyst. I want to know why things happen. About a dozen years ago, I found that there was such a thing as a Constitution Party. I joined it immediately, found it to be not what I had hoped for, because it should be the most important political organization in the United States, and asked the founder, Howard Phillips, what he thought I might do to make it better. And he said, you tell me. So I embarked upon a program. I've read 150 books and thousands of articles since then. I've written 2 of my own. I hope you'll take a copy. They're on the table outside. The Patriot's Guide to Taking America Back, and Will You Help Save Your Country? Both of which are very important books because they're not problem books, they're solution books. That's what we need to talk about, are the solutions. I'm a strict construction constitutionalist. I believe that the Constitution, properly followed, has the answers for our society today and every other society. The problem that we face is that for more than 100 years now, we have branched away from the Constitution towards this thing called progressivism, which is a soft, fuzzy name for Marxism. Until we get back to the Constitution, and we have to have a way to do that, we will be going down the wrong path. The creation of the welfare state, women's liberation, the sexual revolution, the gay rights movement, many other things are products of progressivism. We need to find ways to deal with these issues in an appropriate, humane, and a constitutional manner. Thank you.
So we're moving on to our first question, but let's call all these candidates for being here today. Yeah, thank you for traveling out here. First question, we'll be going down the row from each question. The first one, Suni Nam start with opening statement. So we're going to start with Mark Stewart as the first on this question. The Commission on Presidential Debates prevents nearly all candidates outside the two-party system from participating in the national debates. What reforms would you implement to prevent this injustice?
What you're doing in thousandfold. You have here, and there'll be another panel of 9 more of us with very good ideas, with a lot more activity, I think. I know 2 military veterans, I know activists here. What do they do to rise up instead within the Democrat Party? Amy Klobuchar is a lawyer of long standing, but goes through the party motions. Biden, same thing. You are not nearly, when you're in a Democrat echelons, as good of a representative of real people as the people you're seeing here. The good news is that thanks to podcasting, internet, all kinds of ways that we can spread this here, 4 years from now, I don't think there's going to be a CPD. I don't think there will be that sort of limitation. It'd be great if we could break this down even now in 2020, because they are a restriction, as government always does, to restrict to what those who have the inside want and to keep the others out. We are knocking down those doors. Thank you for opening them up for many of us. And my hope is that everyone here becomes, to some extent, an activist as well. Take 1 or 2 of us who you believe in, look at our websites, and propel us, even if it doesn't mean electability, it means forcefulness to the people who do get elected. It's going to be hard to elect an outsider in 2020. But if Donald Trump or the eventual presidential nominee knows that there is an Adam, an Arvin, a Charles, one of anyone here who's gotten a decent percentage of the vote by people who vote their conscience and realize that party is just a housing and it's no longer a very good one, we will overcome. Thanks for asking.
Ben, Zion.
Yes. Well, I want to thank the Free and Equal Election Foundation not only for having us to this event, but for this incredible work that they've done on behalf of electoral reform. And as Mark alluded to, this is going to be a third-party year. And the years beyond, we are going to see, I think, a great resurgence in the strength of operations outside of this two-party system. And this is something that we can be excited about. The United States Transhumanist Party is an advocate for blockchain voting, We have in my platform, the Futurist New Deal for America. I Vote USA, and this is an initiative that allows for greater transparency, far greater efficiency, and solving many of the problems that I imagine all of these other candidates will be addressing as well. But this is something that also leads to bears greater fruits beyond. If we begin to have digitalization in governance, e-governance, we will begin to see a true democracy, the likes of which the world has never seen. And this is what is different in the techno-progressive mandate. Another candidate mentioned that progressive is a bad word. This is not a bad word. We need to use emerging technology. We need to use all of these kinds of things to create a civilization truly of the 21st century. And this is what the United States Transhumanist Party has to offer. We recently had a very successful primary election event in our organization wherein we spearheaded ranked choice voting and many other reforms. I would encourage you to speak with myself or the Chairman Gennady after this event, and we would be happy to discuss that. But yes, and I Vote USA, the Futurist New Deal for America.
Thank you. Brian, Carol.
Yes, I'm a Californian, and I believe I saw that in yesterday's Super Tuesday primary that the turnout was 18% in California. And that's after all of the hoopla that the Democrats have had without however many candidates they started with and however many debates they had. So obviously, the current debates are not getting the job done. Well, in California, we have more independents than we have registered Republicans. The parties are losing their followings, and the country hasn't quite caught up with that yet, with an understanding that both parties are coming apart at the seams. They're going to split apart, and I think we're going to see a major reorganization. Both the Republicans and the Democrats can, if they want to have their own rules for their own debates, they can do that. But I think a situation like we're seeing today, where other parties can be heard, is extremely important.
Thank you. Dan Behrman.
I think the question itself is kind of flawed because we can look at, what this debate commission is, and we can recognize that it's a monopoly. But the question is, what do we do about it? And the question should really be, why is there a monopoly? And we have these groups of politicians who are essentially for sale. This is a multi-billion-dollar debate series that's going on. When you consider all of the value that's going into this, that it would cost any other candidates to come together and put on a debate like this with this much airtime, this much advertising, this much fundraising. And where does all this money come from? It comes from all these corporations or all these individuals and small businesses who want to buy. They want to buy policies that are going to help their businesses make more money. And they're buying policies from politicians who should not have the power to sell these policies. A lot of these policies are unconstitutional. So when we ask, what do we do about this? We take the power away from the politicians to unconstitutional policies, these unethical and immoral policies. And when you take away this power, you take away their ability to sell this power. And that's how you get money out of politics. When you get money out of politics, then you level the playing field for everybody else, and the real voice is heard.
Thank you. Arvin Bora.
I've pledged to be your partner in chief. But the interesting thing is, you don't need to wait for me to be the partner in chief. Jury nullification brought freedom of the press to America. And today, we can use it to do things like halt the war on drugs single-handedly, halt the war against sex workers single-handedly by just saying not guilty. I bring this up to point out that we have much more power than we think we have, or than they want us to think that we have. The CPD exists just to exclude people from debates. More importantly, they exist to exclude powerful ideas from the debates. Anytime a politician has managed to get threshold, as Ross Perot did, they just raise the threshold so that no more threats can happen within their highly controlled and limited monopoly on ideas. If I'm elected, then I will appoint Judge Napolitano to the Supreme Court, and anyone else who I know is going to find those actions unconstitutional. But when it really comes down to this, we have to take the power into our own hands. People have asked in Liberty what I'll do to get in the CPD debates. I've told them the truth. I have no way of doing that. But I can guarantee that if we work together, we can get these ideas into every dinner table debate, every water cooler debate, every private debate, and that's where ideas are really shaped in the United States of America. The CPD is an enemy of the people. It is an enemy of the freedom of thought and the freedom of press. It is absolutely a monopoly controlled by an oligarchy. When I spoke outside the CPD in a protest, here's who was standing right next to me, the person who wrote their original press release. Even the initial supporters of the CPD are protesting its existence, and together we can put them out of commission.
J.R. Myers.
Well, we've been subsidizing private clubs called the Democratic and Republican parties for a very long time. And so we're paying for our own tyranny, in essence, because they have become parties of the oligarchs, and they no longer represent the people of this country. And not only are they getting their money from the corporations, and by the way, corporations are not people, but they have colluded to exclude free ideas in the marketplace, and they are increasingly erecting barriers to ballot access in the various states to prohibit new opposition from arising. And so I've spent most of my adult life trying to combat these restrictions and the media control and the corporate donations, and it is an uphill battle, but we have to continue this battle to remove their control over us. They do not represent the people. It's an illusion. It's actually worse than the Soviet system in that they pretend that we have a choice, but it's a false dichotomy. It's not a real choice. It's only a choice between bad and worse. So we need to remove public financing from those parties, and we need to remove their ability to restrict opposition or competition in the public marketplace. So that's why one of the reasons I also agree that a political realignment is taking place, and the existing parties are going to need to reform themselves, or new parties are going to have to arise to promote these ideas that are not being allowed into the marketplace. And so that's what I'm doing here, is trying to expand the marketplace of political ideas and debate, dialogue, exchange. Thanks.
Eric Gerhardt.
Well, my views on this is I like them to keep doing what they're doing and shoot themselves in the foot. The people that use every bit of technology, the little soapboxes that we have, spread that out everywhere, because you can't stop the people. We're going to listen to them. Technology's growing, information's growing. The amount of information we absorb every single day is growing to the point where we're not blind to what they're doing. We see what they're doing, and we're going to stop what they're doing. Even if we fail once, we're going to keep coming back, because if you don't do what we say, what you said while you were running, you were going to do this, you're not going to do that, we're not going to vote for you again. We're going to vote for somebody else. Our money's going to go somewhere else. We'll drive them out that way. It'll work itself out in the long run. And until we can get into office, like a Gerhardt presidency would be defending the rights of the people day one and every day till I was out of there, and putting things in place so that the people have more power to defend their rights. It's really frustrating, though, how much they lie to us about everything that they do. And it's hard to believe anything. They want to give you this shiny thing over here, and then 4 years down the line, you still haven't gotten it. We still have broken health care. So no, one of the candidates is still running that he's going to fix health care, even though he was the one that implemented health care in that body. It's idiotic that anybody would vote for that person, but they're so blinded to what they could have that they're going to go for that, and they'll find out in the end they won't get it, and they'll come somewhere else. So that's where I believe we stand right now.
Thank you, Mr. Gerhardt. Charles Kraut.
My question would be, why would government in any form want to limit debate among political candidates, political philosophies, anything? Washington, Jefferson, Madison, so many of our founding fathers talked about the importance of engaging in the political debate to make this country a better country under our Constitution and under God. So I'm wondering who lobbied for that, and it sounds like it's a product of the political parties. Now, it is true that you can wear a candidate out by making him debate constantly, so that's why we have voter guides, and we have other resources which give us a detailed description of the candidate's beliefs. The problem is, most of the time, what the candidate says and what he does are two different things, and we have to pass the bill to find out what's in the bill, or we have to get the person in office to find out what he really believes. That's not the way it should. Woodrow Wilson wrote a book called The State. This is before he was governor of New Jersey. He complained about the way our Congress had ceased debates, had gone instead to the position of referring everything to committee, and he missed the debate and suggested that we needed to change our government to a more parliamentarian form of government on the English model, thereby also making himself ineligible to serve as President of the United States.
And Suryam Woyawasipe.
Okay, Curry. It's a
Curry?
hyphenated name.
Thank you.
I'd like to acknowledge what I heard as facts from all of my brother presidential cohort candidates. The CPD is not government, it's private corporations. Corporations are not people. 40% of Americans didn't vote in 2016, I know that. It's a false dichotomy. Remove public funds from elections. So thank you all for the truth. I can poll at 15% because I'm a black woman. Black women vote is the most concentrated group that vote.